RTD Live Talk Late Night Chat. Wanted to check in this evening and share some thoughts with you and also find out what else is going on out in the news. So if that being the case, welcome to this live stream. Make sure everything is good on my side, and then we can begin a little back and forth. So let me see let's check in, see who's tuning in thus far. As always, if you are joining us, let me know in the chat where you're watching from and make sure the sound, audio, and everything is good, and then we can keep moving. So I came across an interesting article that I think is very timely in nature because it's one of those things where we got this virus situation, which is something that I think everybody is paying attention to. So just today, the World Health Organization, if I'm not mistaken, that's how the WHO came out and basically stated the obvious of the fact that the current coronavirus is a problem, as if people didn't know already. So with that being the case, I'm going to share my thoughts on that. We got American DeVille, we got Tony Blaylock, we got James. Says good audio here in Minnesota. Sounds good. We have D. Thomas, still St. Louis, Missouri. Okay, 314. We got Greg from Milwaukee. We got Bitcoin Black from Los Angeles. Appreciate everybody taking time to join with me this evening. So, interesting article I came across, and it's one of the things where, as you guys know, Rethinking a Dollar primarily focuses on the importance of educating people on their need to understand the distinction between sound money and fiat currency. And once you have a great understanding of what the two variations of those items are, it makes everything else in the financial world a lot easier, I believe. And so I find it very interesting that a lot of people to this day still have a lot of confidence and hope in this current financial paradigm that's primarily made up of paper and digital instruments that are all liabilities to some entity of some kind. So every digit and every paper financial product that you can name has extreme or a lot of counterparty risk. And so it just baffles me how people still think that you can dip and dabble in this current system as it's crumbling and not be impacted in some way. But I'm assuming that majority of the people are not really taking it serious, because if you knew, and if you knew what was at stake, I would imagine you would lessen your exposure to all this digital and paper stuff as far as the archaic financial system that we're part of. So reason I'm saying all that is because it's an interesting article that I came across that lets me know exactly where the big money and the big players in the game, where they're running to, on top of other places. You know, they're dipping dabbing in a lot of things, but at the end of the day, the system is designed especially for the globally systemically important banks. And it's those banks that will probably be the dominoes that bring this whole thing down. And so article I'm going to share in a minute, it has to do with the fact that central banks have been accumulating a massive amount of gold over the last 10 years since the great financial crisis. And it's definitely not by coincidence. And so I'm going to show you some graphs and charts and whatnot. But I'm curious to get your guys' thoughts on, could this coronavirus be the tipping point for the banking sector? Because the repo market clearly spells trouble. And reason I'm looking down and not up is I'm trying to log into this phone so you guys can call in and share what's in your mind. But could this repo market be the trigger that leads to the great financial reboot? And so I don't say reset. I never use the word reset, because reset to me symbolizes going back to something of old. And I don't think that the powers that be want us to go backwards. They want us to go forward. And forward means they want us to go further, deeper into this digital paradigm, removing more of what's currently physical in hopes that the people will forfeit their rights to tangible I can't really say stores of value because cash is not necessarily a store of value, but it's tangible and it's still physical and it's still accepted at this current moment. And so as a part of, I had a chance to glance at the Jerome Powell FOMC meeting. It says, Mike, did you see the committee hearing on cash this morning? One man armies. I did not get a chance to see it today because I was doing some video stuff, so I didn't get a chance to see it. And since you brought it up, let me go ahead and try to pull it up and see what comes up. But I'm not surprised at all because cash is problematic in this current environment. Committee on cash hearing. Committee FOMC. So I'm assuming you're referring to the FOMC meeting, if I'm not mistaken, on cash today. I'm going to see what comes up. And I'm curious to find out what was some of the things shared. Feel free to let me know. Let me see here. Yeah, nothing coming up immediately. So let me know exactly what you're referring to and where you saw that at and where. And I'd be curious to dive in deeper. Because people are dying from Corona V and stock market takes that as good news. Right. So America's DeVille, that is something that is completely a divergent from reality. So like I mentioned, I think I mentioned this a couple of weeks before about how ever since this new year started, everything is upside down. All the typical things that would trigger some type of panic or sell-off seems to do the reverse. So that what that lets me know is that I really do believe in the real economy, that when things happen, when there's news out there of some type of event, that the markets probably actually do go down, but then right then and there, and I don't want to go too far into this, but there's people out there that really uses that the plunge protection team as being the bailout mechanism that central banks or the governments use because it's unlimited amount of funds. So apart from what we might see on the surface as to what's in those counts, nobody knows. Then you throw in the whole 21 trillion missing funds and stuff like that. So funds are coming from somewhere to prop this thing up. And of course, as I was talking with someone earlier, all of that is digital and electronic, algorithms and electronic, I forgot what it's called, electronic trading or whatever it is. I can't think of the top of my head, but you get what I'm saying. So the power that won't be for long is what I call them. The BS is a rap mic in more ways than one. Naki, I don't doubt it, but here's the thing. The ultimate goal is for them to have a controlled demolition of the old system and a reboot into what they want to usher us into. And clearly, with all the central banks now supporting the idea of their own digital currencies, I think that that's what they're going to try to roll out in the meantime, while the central banks are accumulating a large amounts of gold. So the central banks are accumulating gold while those same central banks are getting ready to roll out the CBDCs, which is the central bank digital currencies, all at the same time. And so I'm going to go right to the article. And so I wanted to actually, let me see, check out the chat. So I don't have the link, but it's worth listening. If you get it, I will do so. It says seniors disabled with pension are to be depopulated ASAP agenda present. Yeah, it's going to be a lot of hurt souls that are still caught in the old archaic digital and paper world. And so, and that's the thing. Like, at this point, I've been pretty much preaching this same narrative for so long now, where I'm not even like really, phased by it, because if you don't hold it, you don't own it. And if you think you own it, try to get it out at the same time as other million people, you're going to find out how easy those digits and paper can be redeemed or extracted from the financial system at the same time. So they mentioned XRP for you haters. You will be all shocked that you missed this opportunity. Get ready. Crypto Poppy. XRP, man, it's one of the things where it's for the bank. It's for the banking system in general. So I don't doubt that it does, it does extremely well. But then again, at the end of the day, I think the primary question will be, it's not designed for the people to benefit from. So I can see, I'm not sure how long it's going to be, how long the public will be able to benefit and profit off of the rise of XRP without the bankers somehow getting greedy or doing something, because I believe that XRP, part of my opinion is that it's going to be used, or it's being used as a mechanism for the banking sector to transfer wealth, or however they choose to allocate it, out of the old system to the new. And then I can imagine that they will let that coin go belly up, because if we have a good portion of the public out here preaching and pushing for adoption of XRP, I don't think they ever want the public to win directly. And if XRP is a favorite coin of a lot of people, I can see them saying, okay, we're going to fork it, split it, do something else to where it ends up not doing as well as a lot of people think. So that's just my personal opinion. But I've never been never really been into XRP, even though I was aware of it a long time ago. So here's the major question. Here's a question I want to throw out there to you. And so this is a question I want to talk about tonight, because I think I got a couple of things I want to throw out at you. But why are central banks buying so much gold? Why have they been buying so much gold? And the simple answer is because they see the writing on the wall to the problems they created. And so apart from the fact that I always, they always say, don't just watch what they do what they do. And so if central banks are accumulating large amounts of gold, I think that it might be something that people should have already been doing. But if you have not, right now, if you watch where the banks are going, like they're issuing liabilities to the public. And I'm watching Jerome Powell the other day, or yesterday, was it Thursday? Yesterday, yeah. And hearing about him, he mentioned within the first little 10 minutes of the segment I watched, he mentioned the Federal Reserve liabilities a lot. And when he was referring to liabilities, he's talking about the paper notes. Those are Federal Reserve liabilities and quote unquote government assets. And so the liability assets is all distorted, because once again, they're backed by nothing apart from the treasuries that's supposed to be on hold for those things. But you got debt and debt notes, and there's nothing there of real true substance, especially when they printing or creating reserves up to the wazoo. And so Rolf mentioned Deutsche Bank. So yeah, definitely, that's what got me thinking about this, because it ultimately what it boils down to is the central banks. This is my personal opinion. The central banks are getting heavy as they can, utilizing the benefits that they created in this very system of creating reserves and buying treasuries and all types of government debt, and then taking their own reserves. So if you look at how the central banks operate, they have a little slush fund of operational capital that they use for their operations. And with whatever's left over, speaking in regards to the central bank, to the Federal Reserve, whatever's left over, they end up having, 10, 20, 30 billion dollars or whatever. I forgot. I looked at their balance sheet, and they end up having a good chunk of change. And so with that little spread there, they pay the leftover funds back to the treasury, but then they cover their cost in between. And their costs, it runs in the billions to fund everything. They get free money or free currency that they create for themselves just by doing transactions around government debt, buying debt, selling treasuries, buying debt, selling treasuries, and all that activity. They get to keep a good little margin, and all central banks operate under the same mechanism. And with that little bit of chunk, they can actually go into the market more likely and actually buy physical gold and physical whatever they want with something created out of nothing. That is just brilliant. And so with that, they've been accumulating large amounts of metals. So I actually want to go to the screen and see if I can pull this up and show you guys exactly what I'm talking about. So on the screen here, if you guys can see, make sure I pull this up correct. Okay. So here's an article here that I came across that I thought was worth mentioning. And it has to do with the gold demand trends for last year and how this year is starting. And so it says, could CV scare people to not touch physical cash? Could CV? Refresh me on who CV is. And then I saw a question about XRP in there. They can print currency. We can't. Very true. Rolf, they can print, but here's the benefit of them printing right now, because you are aware of what their activities are. Like, I'm fully aware that the repo market is a sign that there is a crisis under the surface, Therefore, this is their last effort to keep this thing going as long as they can. So my motto has changed. My personal motto, my personal opinion, my activity, everything I'm talking about and preaching from this point forward, from 2020 onward, this is straight out crisis mode, because this current recession that we're in, that they're not calling a recession, will be the last under this monetary paradigm. And so I'm of the full mindset that it'll be very foolish of me personally. This is just me. I don't know how you feel. It'll be very foolish of me to continue on doing what's already outdated as far as the old school model of investing, when you have this unprecedented monetary policy pumping up stock market, pumping up the bond market, pumping up everything. And I'm supposed to do the same practices of work hard, save, put some aside in retirement, and think that that stuff is going to be there when it's time to withdraw. Forgive me, but I'm no damn fool. So with that being the case, if they're going to create reserves, that I'm going to have to adjust my strategy on what I do with my excess reserves as well, because we all have reserves, if you don't believe it or not. And so it's a matter of what do you consider your reserves, and what do you do with the reserves that you have. So what I mean reserves, if I know government liabilities or central bank liabilities happen to be currency, I don't really want to hold too much of it. I want to put it to use the way they're putting it to use. They're creating reserves to prop the system up. I want to take my excess reserves and I want to put it into use. I want to redeem them things and get some physical. That's just me, but to each his own. So I'm going to thumb through this article a little bit and show you some things that's very interesting. So it says, and this is came out today, and this is from the Gold Hub, which is a part of the World Gold Council. And a lot of things stood out here. And I'll call off a couple things, but I'd like to get your thoughts on it. And the phone lines, let me see, make sure the phone lines should be open. No, they're not. So forgive me. Let me get these phone lines in order, and so you guys can give me a call, because I'm curious to find out what you think. Won't be on long tonight, but just want to be effective with it. And then we can go from there. So give me 1 second. All right. Phone lines are open if you guys want to give me a call. So let me actually go back to my screen here. So the big thing is I'm trying to figure out how to, Mike, your wall reminded me of Pink Floyd. That's a good one. All right. So I want to thumb through this article. I don't know if I can zoom in or not, but call in and let your voice be heard. So I'm playing around with something new on my end. But I want to recall a couple things that should be of concern to you. It says central bank demand totaled 650 tons. 650 tons in 2019, the 10th consecutive year of annual net purchases. And so year by year, they've been accumulating more and more and more. So think about this. The central bank concept, this current go round, the oldest central bank we currently have now is the Federal Reserve. So happen to be the first. Any coincidence? No. But ever since then, every nation around the world has gotten a central bank, which basically governments have abdicated the responsibility of the financial dealings of the country to a privately held corporation of oligarchies, families, whatever. Okay. So they've taken on a very unique position to where they can create something out of nothing, turn around and buy something tangible, such as gold. And so they have been accumulating gold continuously, year over year, more after more and more, for some reason. And the reason is the fact that, and this is where I'm getting to my point, the reason that the central banks are accumulating so much gold is because they recognize there's only so much time left that they can control the narrative of the global economy being healthy. But more importantly, central banks' primary responsibility is to make sure that the commercial banks, which happen to be the primary shareholders of all central banks, typically, that they will have something to fall back on when the system goes belly up. Because think about this. Most commercial banks, like your Wells Fargo, JP Morgan Chase is different because they're like the leading, and Goldman Sachs are the leading globally systemic important banks. But most commercial banks don't have anything tangible. They are the creators of this digital and paper illusion through fractional reserve lending. So my hypothesis And once again, I'm not a PhD economist. I'm just a man with an opinion. But my hypothesis is that central banks have been accumulating so much gold so that they'll have a something to reboot the system with for themselves, so that it'll give them a little bit of credibility as to what they're going to try to roll out and use on the international scene. So the best way for central banks to stay liquid for themselves is to provide insurance to the mess that they're creating for themselves while they reboot the system. And then when they're rebooting the system, they're not going to necessarily use the commercial banks the way they have before, because there'll be no need for brick and mortar stores like we're seeing now with so many closures. And what's going to happen is there'll be a transition into the digital world like they want. And like everybody think that, going digital and all these current currencies and cryptocurrencies is going to be the solution to our problems. I don't agree with that, because that's directly what they want to happen. But what I do think is that the reason they're accumulating so much gold is because a part of this reboot, central banks will have position to be able to continue to force themselves upon governments, because they're going to be one holding gold, and governments will be cash strapped. Governments, central bank, the Federal Reserve or United States government, Uncle Sam is already tapped out. He's 1 trillion plus in debt, 100 and how many ever trillion in unfunded liabilities that can't be repaid. So it'll make it a lot easier for the central banks to continue to come up with strategies on how to implement and liquefy Uncle Sam again, or other governments as well. And I think they're going to have a very good position, because they are the ones holding the most gold that we know of. And it'll be easier for them to have the right probably to issue some type of digital currency, which is what they're trying to do as they remove physical cash, because the reboot doesn't include cash. The reboot is solely digital. So that's a long rant. But what really stood out to me is this map here. And so these are the nations that have been accumulating the most gold. It says emerging markets continue to dominate central bank gold buying. And so look how lopsided this map is in regards to who's out there purchasing. And so clearly we got, let me see over here. We got the Eastern Hemisphere buying heavily. The Eastern Hemisphere is buying up everything they can, and there's very little green on the Western Hemisphere. I'm sorry, Eastern Hemisphere, yeah. So we got a call to see if we can get somebody here. Hello, caller. What's your name? Where you calling from?
Kevin from Sarasota.
Kevin from Sarasota. How you doing, my friend? What's on your mind tonight?
I'm doing very well, sir. Hey, I just wanted to talk about this whole gold thing that the banks are buying up. Now, I can understand gold having value whenever it's distributed amongst us, out here who will eventually have to barter with it when during the reset. But what's going to give gold the value whenever they have it all? Unless we can get our hands on it, in which I'm pretty sure they're not going to let go of it, so they're going to put something else in its place, like another fiat currency, or because we won't have the capability to give it its industrial value. We're not going to be manufacturing things out here in the bartering system during the reset. So what's going to give gold its value?
Great question. And so I appreciate you for asking that. So my personal opinion is what will give gold value is even though they're accumulating tonnage and there's probably more gold that's hidden away than we know about it, gold and silver has always had monetary properties regardless. So no matter what system we're under, it will always be held, stored, collected, and used as a medium of exchange. In a worst case scenario, it'll be done amongst central banks or governments, because that's one thing as of now that you can't create more of out of thin air at this current moment. And so with all the tonnage that's being acquired in the Eastern Hemisphere, all those nations from that map I just showed, they're a part of the Belt and Road Initiative. And so gold is going to be used heavily in the Belt and Road Initiative. And any nation that's not included in that wants to do business with the Belt and Road Initiative, you're going to have to come with some tonnage in order to have some credibility in that system over there. So there will be value to it, because I think China is not accumulating, I've heard 20,000 tons, 30,000 tons. They're not accumulating a barbaric relic in the form of an outdated metal such as gold for no reason. And so I think they're going to be the ones determining the price of that actual metal per ounce in as a part of this reboot. And then they'll actually demand any type of transactions done with them or their Belt and Road Initiative to be settled in some type of gold backed or gold futures or gold something, so that they know that who they're dealing with is serious and they can't just do what we've done for the last 100 years, creating something out of nothing and spread it all over the world in the form of this debt fiat system. So I think there will be a new price discovery mechanism done by China or Russia. And at that point, whatever goes over on this side, it will be reflected maybe in two prices. You're going to have domestic price and an international price. And whenever the price somewhere else is a lot higher, you got the whole arbitrage where it's going to lead this country. So there'll be some people profiting off of the price of gold if it's set higher by China, I believe.
Okay, all right. So whenever you talk about tonnage of gold, are you talking about big, massive, 2 foot long by 6 inch wide bars, or coins or chains? I mean, what are you talking about?
So you said for us, or for what the central banks are accumulating?
Anybody, because I know I can get my hands on some coins and some change, but I definitely can't get my hands on no big, massive bullion. And I'm a silver collector myself anyway. Yeah. So I just buy silver eagles left and right.
Yeah. So I would say on this side, for your average Joe, such as myself, I do what I can when I can, and I do the fractional stuff because it's just easier, and I think it'll move easier. But yet, for those that are high net worth individuals, there's people out there that can supply you with tonnage if you need it. So it's more so, what can you afford, and can you source it at this current moment, knowing that everything that's left around has probably already been moved out east. So I like Rob Kirby and all those people who deal in that particular industry. I'm sure they have a better story than I can, but I'd imagine it's not as easy to get your hands on a lot of tonnage because of what's happening with that, everything heading east. So, but I'm sure it's out there though, but I personally, I don't know where to get it from. So I don't know.
All right, man. Well, hey, thank you very much for taking my call tonight. You have yourself a wonderful evening, and all right, keep doing it.
All right, my friend. Appreciate you for calling in. Thanks.
Later.
Great call there. So I appreciate, as always, the participation. And so let's keep it going to the comment section. But for those that might just be coming in, my hypothesis is that the reason central banks are accumulating so much gold is because they have to reassure themselves on the mess that they created. And the mess that they created happens to be on behalf of the commercial banks. And what commercial banks have done to humanity, it's really been the reason why everyone is in so much debt, because those are the financial institutions that have been allowed to take very bare minimum reserves and create 10 times worth for creation of loans. And so at this current moment, one of my concerns is that the coronavirus will probably, if the coronavirus happens to be the real deal and it's something they didn't factor in, a lot of people won't be borrowing. If people aren't borrowing, then banks won't make profit and banks are going to be in trouble. So, hello, caller. What's your name? Where you calling from?
Hey, Mike. It's James from Cleveland.
How you doing, James? What's on your mind tonight?
Good. Hey, I wanted to ask you, I was wondering if you ran across anybody to ask them, what do you guys think the short-term price of silver is going to be with like a slowdown in China with this virus going on? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, if a lot of manufacturing is going to shut down, I don't see them buying a lot of silver or like copper. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. That's an interesting point. So if there's a slowdown, which currently with this virus situation in China shutting down, I think there will be a slowdown in the purchasing of silver. And so I think that at this current moment with the price of $17, $18, whatever it is, it will still, and mind you, it's the price is still it's still set by the Western forces like the COMEX and London Bullion Exchange, and all those forces still set the price. So I'm not quite sure that that'll really impact the price right away. I think, for as far as that region over there, there'll still be demand. But yet, I think at this current moment, more people are concerned with their health and the risk of their health than they are their financial concerns. So I don't think more so people are worried about their wealth as opposed to staying alive if it's as bad as they make it seem to us. So I don't see them running out going to get silver right away because it's cheaper or more expensive. They're concerned with staying alive. Now on this side, I think once again the price is 17, 15, 17, 18, whatever it is now. it's still the cheapest undervalued asset that I think has its unlimited potential of what it could become, because it has so many different uses and it's not as abundant above ground as gold is, because gold is stored and sitting vaults. Silver, as soon as it comes out of the ground, to my knowledge, it's given for bullion and coins or whatnot, then it's put to use in the industry. So it's one of the things where that could be a problem. So something on this side could actually, I think, drive the price higher. And I was actually talking to trader Steph, and she was saying, according to her Fibonacci charts, as far as the bounces and all stuff like that, she sees, she's anticipating some breakout within some, close time frame, that when we hit $21 again, like we did, I think she said in 2013 or something, she showed me some charts. She said it's going to go through the roof just because it's going to be a breakout, and that's all according to the chart. So whatever that's worth. But once again, right now, in my opinion, is the cheapest time to get it, because my thing would be, what are you waiting on if you haven't been already? Because these prices can't last forever, and then when it breaks, I don't think it's going to come back to these prices. So that's my opinion.
Yeah, I've been in the markets, the mining markets, for probably about 10, 12 years now, but I've never had to think about like a big slowdown in a big manufacturing country like China. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah. And so I don't think,
I guess I don't know how to look at it. And I was asking you,
Yeah. So I think personally, and here's my thing, it's two viewpoints I'm taking with this. If this pandemic situation, if it's a planned event, then it's it's going to be strategically used to further this current debt-based paradigm, because the only thing central banks and governments can do is borrow to fund and to try to keep health, and use the narrative of we need to, expand the debt to help people or whatever. Or if it's not planned and this is the real deal, and it's going to spread, and then it's going to mess up everybody's plans as far as the government, central banks, and you name it. Because if this is that black swan that pops bubbles, then at this point, you're going to have two worries: your life and our monetary system at the same time. And so, of course, your life is more important than the monetary system. So a lot of people won't care as much about their bank account as opposed to their health overall, especially if it's a scare in your city or something like that. You ain't really concerned about going to work if, one of your coworkers come down with something. So it's going to change the way we think, which is a good distraction from the other problems we have in the political realm, the monetary realm. So just my little 2 cents there.
All right. Hey, just second question. I can hang up after I ask it, but I'll let someone else jump in. But like in your area, like, okay, I'm like 3.5 hours from you. Like, are your buddies like talking about this Corona thing, or are they kind of like whatever?
Good point. And so to this date, I have no one's reached out to me to ask me my opinion. And in the day-to-day talk, most people don't watch the news like that, so most people may be oblivious to it. So I'm aware of it because I follow this stuff daily. But yet, majority of people like caught up in like the get up early, go to work, and do your thing in that way. They don't usually have time for it, and so I don't think we've not had a case in Detroit to my knowledge. So until you get the first case that's broadcast on all the major news channels, I don't think people are gonna really take it serious, in my personal opinion.
Yeah.
How about in your area?
I was just asking because I went out with a couple buddies last night, and I said something, and he goes, "Oh yeah, that flu thing." I go, "Well, it's a little bit more than the flu, dude."
Yeah, that flu thing. Yeah, so I've heard all types of things, man.
Hey, it was good hearing from you. I'll let you get back to your show, boss.
I appreciate you, my friend. Thanks.
Take care.
Love you too. Oh man, that's funny. Justin March, I appreciate the love offered to the channel, my friend. I saw a great question out there. It says, do you receive text on that number? Rule serious. Yes, I do receive text. There's a great question out there, and it had to do with starting a business. And so I forgot. Let me see if I can find it. Where's the question? It says something about is right now a good time to start a business? And so I think I would answer that because I'm personally, today I posted another blog or podcast rather on the Giftpreneur page. And so it has to do with starting a business, but yeah, I'm taking a different approach with that. So I'll briefly touch on it. And then if anybody interested, just type in Giftpreneur, go listen to our podcast. But what I'm interested in doing is, because we have so much noise going on right now. We have the political, the monetary, the financial, health, all this stuff going on can be a major distraction from what I think would be the most important for each individual. And so what I'm really excited to get into is not necessarily the business side of things, but producing something of value that can be deployed and other people can benefit from. And it boils down to it can be a business. But more so at this current point, I think people will, especially in this current decade, people will be looking for solutions to their problems, because people are going to find out really soon that they're going to have a lot more problems than they ever could have anticipated. And so because of that, I can imagine there's going to be a lot of opportunity. And so every problem that someone has, the solution can be a business. And so me personally, I'm more so interested in helping people find something a lot deeper than just a quick fix to make a buck. I believe that if each and every one of us decided to go a little bit deeper and really search out for something more, I think you can probably find something that you would want to consider your calling. And so your calling at the end of the day, if you're serving your gifts, then you'll find that it'll be very beneficial to you. So yes, I do believe businesses will be in abundance coming up this new decade. And that's what I'm excited about, because there's going to be more problems than any one person can take care of. So we're going to need innovation like never before coming up as this old system die, because what's about to change is employment is about to change. And you got Andrew Yang running on the fact that people can, he's going to give people $1,000 a month, and however that comes about. But you just think there will be no need to offer $1,000 a month if our monetary system wasn't so problematic at this moment, to where the cost of living will always far outweigh what people can earn, because the system wasn't designed for you to prosper or profit in the conventional employment mechanism. You can be a high net worth individual in the form of an employee, but you also in the highest tax bracket. So are you really better off? You tell me. But the people who benefit from the system happen to be business owners. So you tell me how the system was designed. But anyway, I can go down a long story with that one. But let me see, Tony, how many years young? What we got going on here? It says gold is money of kings, silver is the money of gentlemen, and debt is the money of peasants. Good stuff there. We got a birthday out there. It says, happy birthday, Jeff. And so I want to get back to the article, and because I think this is really important, because I came across another article about Deutsche Bank. And so I'm of the mindset that Deutsche Bank is the biggest problem the world's facing. And where Deutsche Bank goes, so does all the other banks, I believe. And the reason I say that is because Deutsche Bank is sitting on quadrillions or several hundred trillion. Like, how do you get to several hundred trillion? Anyway, but that's what has been allowed. And so what I want to share with you is this page here to give an idea what's going on. So it says Deutsche Bank posts net loss 5.3 billion euros for 2019 amid major restructuring. So you might say 5.3 is minor. And at the end of the day, 5.3 in comparison to hundreds of trillion is extremely minor. But Deutsche Bank has been leaking funds for the last 2 or 3 years. And it's only so much you can leak as far as just become, to a point where you're no longer profitable, to where you're trying to get rid of any segment, any portion, try to push off your problems here, push off the problems there, to the point where something has to give. And Deutsche Bank is a German bank at that. And so the country of Germany and the citizens of Germany will be on the hook firsthand for anything that happened with Deutsche Bank. And Germany's already in a recession, according to all their figures. And so it's just a matter of time before Deutsche Bank's leak happens to get bigger and it actually bursts as far as all the problems they have. Because one thing you haven't heard much about, and I haven't actually done much diving into it, is that all those non-performing loans, NPLs, non-performing loans is one of the primary reasons I believe that the euro is going to have some issues, because all those countries are heavily in debt. during this debt binge of credit expansion and the central bank's quantitative easing, they've been buying up and lowering rates and all types of stuff, which has been making, it says another zombie bank, which has been making it very difficult for nations to pay back their debts. And so there's more defaults going on right now. There's more defaults going on than we're aware of, and we will never probably actually fully hear the truth, because there's no way that we can hear about all the true losses that are taking place right now. And with every default, that's somebody that was holding that as an asset that's going to be missing out. So how many defaults does it take for the holders of those as assets to have some problems as well? So the contagion event is already underway, I believe. And so without even diving deeper into this Deutsche Bank situation, in 2020, my personal opinion, we're going to hear a lot more about Deutsche Bank than you guys probably want to hear, which are all signs of how this thing is coming apart. Here's another thing here. The job loss Armageddon. It says a German lender announced in July that it would pull out its global equity sales and trading operations, scale back its investment banking division, and cut 18,000 jobs in a bid to trim its adjusted cost base by 20% by 2022. And so, as I always mention, 18,000 jobs is their plan between now and 2 years. But I'm of the mindset they keep leaking funds the way they're leaking, they're gonna cut 18,000 by summertime type of thing. So, can you imagine 18,000 people getting a pink slip? And that's just a very small number. That's what they is like. That's a very small number at the end of the day. But I want to go back to this article about gold, because I believe this is an important subject. More people have probably not really taken serious. Is the fact that look where all this gold is going. And so Russia, China, Mongolia, Azerbaijan, we got India. And even on this side, we have what looks like Colombia and Peru. It says emerging market continue to dominate central bank gold. So Colombia getting their gold up. And actually, when I was in Colombia last week, I was talking to somebody. I got some more videos I got to get out, but they were talking about how emeralds are really big in Colombia. Like mining for emeralds is really big, and then there's a lot of gold mines there. So I'm hoping to get connected and find out a little bit more information. But we got Ecuador and Colombia have been the purchasers of gold, and then on this side we have Guyana, and then of course we got Turkey, Poland. All the nations that's going to be heavy players on the Belt and Road Initiative. So what we can take away from this, one big takeaway is that as this paper and digital mess that's been created explodes, you're going to wish that along the way between now or yesterday rather, and the time that the rest of the world finds out how bad things really are, that you were probably using a lot more of your reserves to actually put them to work for you, for whatever that's worth. So Tony says Trump signed the USMCA bill. Okay. I wasn't familiar with that one. Let me type that in. UMSCA. UMSCA, if I'm saying that correctly. Why UMC won't win Michigan for Trump? Why is the UMC whatever? It says Charles whatever. So I'm not seeing. Let me see. He said, did he is drafted in September 2018? I'm not seeing nothing. It says Trump signed. Okay, there we go. A year ago. Interesting. So it looks like the politicians were able to come together for something. But once again, is it too late? Would be my question. Because if the global economy is slowing down and if this pandemic that's underway escalates, what difference does it make if everything slows down? So that's just my personal opinion there. So I personally am not expecting anything worthwhile to really come from, let me see, where'd I go? I'm not expecting anything to really be promising. And so as you guys can see on the screen here, let me see if I can find a little information there. Not much information there. It says Trump. Let me see. It says celebrating a major policy win. President Trump signed the United States-Mexico-Canada agreement to law, which replaces the North American Free Trade Agreement. And so I think that Mexico-Canada agreement is going to be problematic. But here's a question that I want to put out there. Canada, United States, and Mexico. I remember seeing something years ago about a certain agenda that had to do with the unification and removal of borders between Canada, United States, and Mexico as ultimately going to be one territory. And I'm not sure how that's going to play out now with this wall, but I think that was a part of the agenda. Somebody let me know if I'm wrong, but I want to say the goal was to unify these three countries, remove borders, give us one single currency, because that would make things a lot easier, I believe, for the central banks and whatnot. But I'm not sure how that plays out. But it does lead me to question what's inside the bill, because from that picture, you have a lot of so-called enemies of Trump, but yet they got people over the shoulder. So obviously, this is moving along a lot smoother than you would think it should, given the fact that they're trying to impeach him right now. So it's one of the things I question it. I question it just because why not? So we'll go in a couple more minutes, but I want to connect and just see. It says open borders are already done. North American Union. That's what it is. That's what it's called. North American Union. I want to say I saw a couple mock currencies out there of what they would have liked to have dealt out. But those paper units were at a time where the interest rates were normal, 5-6%, and it wasn't damn near zero. So there we go. James, good point. It says, James, yes, remember the Amero currency we talked. Yeah. And so as plans changed, and I imagine they probably would have wanted to roll that out in time, but due to the fact that every central bank is easing or dropping rates to hold off of crises, they won't have time to come out with some paper. So as I mentioned before, as a part of the reboot, they're going to roll out some type of digital something or another. It says I like that. It says the USMCA is NAFTA with lipstick. It says mass immigration destroys jobs and wages. I don't doubt it. And so I actually was listening to a video earlier, and it says something about a lot of migrants are coming from, I want to say El Salvador. So it looks like, according to them, there's people on the move coming up towards the U.S. anyway. Omnibone says, rethinking out of what happens with China's coronavirus gold holdings. China's coronavirus gold holdings. What happens? I'm not sure what happens with it as far as what do you mean by what happens? Let me elaborate a little bit more for that. And then it says, Tony Blair says, real ID is not a requirement. So in the airport the other day, it was like, everybody by September or October have to have a real ID in order to travel. So they're blasting out on the speaker waves, like, everyone has to have one. And of course, I'm gonna leave that alone. I'm gonna leave it alone. Automation destroys jobs and wages. So yeah, automation has already taken root. And here's the biggest. So here's the thing. So I think we're all unknowingly playing into the ramp up of automation and robotics and AI and everything else and all that stuff. Because if you look at a good portion of our items we use, we got smartphones now with all types of AI stuff in it. We got the whole push for smart everything in your home is all AI and all types of automation type things. And so once again, we're playing right into the push for automation, and it's called convenience. Everybody wants convenience. So you're going to have robots in all the stores that require actual physical movement of things. And then you're going to have all the services we take advantage of now is already automated. Your direct deposit and all some of that is already automated. So yeah, there's not going to be much left for mankind to do. So here's a question: if whatever sector of work you were in or currently in was to be automated or roboticized, then what would you do? Will be the question. And that's where the question earlier about starting a business. Everyone's going to be forced into entrepreneurship in some kind of form. It's either that or you're going to be dependent upon the government or both, either one. So just a little something worth taking a look into. It says, I work in it. They are letting computers do a lot of the logic. Which works, really? Elaborate a little bit more on that. I'm curious to find out your thoughts on that. I'll drop some bricks on that all-seen toilet. Interesting. So with that being the case, we're about to get ready to dial back. I just want to check in and share my thoughts on why gold has become a major player in the game for central banks. And hopefully, when it comes to metals itself, you are taking advantage of these extremely, extremely cheap prices, given the fact that once all this reserves and repo and QE and stimulating, once all this stuff kicks in, everybody's going to be stimulated out of their current paradigm of thinking that all those digital paper and all those contracts and all the, think about this. I remember reading a story about Zimbabwe, and once their hyperinflation was done, all those contracts or promises to pay were null and void, meaning that I haven't dived deep into it because I don't really anticipate. I personally I'm not positioning myself to depend upon any fulfillment of a contract of any kind, because I think I look at all contracts will be considered null and void as the currency becomes an issue. And so, like, for example, there's no insurance on your retirement portfolio directly, apart from what you do to insure it for yourself. So you got all the portfolios, you got annuities, you got insurance policies, you got whole life policies, you got stocks and bonds, you got all those promises. They're all promises held by somebody on your behalf, and you're supposed to be the beneficiary. But what happens if there's a currency issue? There's no resolving that issue. That's just a null and void contract torn up in the middle. So I actually read some articles from a Zimbabwe news source saying that people were, years after the fact, very unhappy that they had been paying premiums for their insurance policies and for all of those products that the bank spun out to them. And so, say if you had a 500, like there's people, I'm giving some fake numbers, but this is how severe it was. There were people who had taken out $500,000 life insurance policy. And so, mind you, during that time frame when they took that policy out, they had a normal currency of ones, 5, 10s, 20s, 50s, and 100s. But then within that 2 or 3 year span, they came out with a $500,000 note. So imagine paying premiums for 2, 3, 4, 5 years, and all of a sudden the government gets out of hand, debt becomes a problem, and you're now holding in your hand a $500,000 note. So think about how angry a person would be if the currency was to go belly up in the midst of you doing what you were told to do, being responsible, all that good stuff, but not realizing the game had already changed and you never adjusted. So with that being the case, I don't really, once you know that the system's rigged against you, if you stay in it in the way that the majority does, I don't feel bad for you because, you bought it, you played into the game. Like you're not really a victim. You deliberately went along with it because either you were afraid to take action for yourself, or B, you want them people to think, oh no, always, it's going to be good. We got the reserve currency. Yeah, whatever. Says pensions will be bust within 10 years. Roth, I believe pensions will be bust within less than 5 if this repo market continues to get out of hand. Like, so Jerome Powell was talking about by April, they can see themselves dialing back on the repo market activity. And I'm thinking, like, he just gave himself a 2-month deadline, which to me, that 60-day window, I take the exact opposite of everything they tell me or everything they tell the world, because they have no reason to tell the truth because their whole organization is a lie. So how would they actually tell the truth all of a sudden now, as if they're operating in our best interest? So I look at this. He gave himself a 60-day window that, to me, after that 60-day window, the likelihood of him coming back and saying something like, well, due to market conditions, due to the coronavirus, due to we're going to have to further expand and also increase and also look to purchase, you know what I'm saying? So, excuse me, mark my words. In 60 days, we're going to come back here, and the next speech or whatever Jerome Powell gives about tapering and dialing back the repo markets, when he said a minimum of 1.5 trillion is needed in reserves at the minimum, but it will fluctuate, then we'll dial back. I took that as in 60 days, it's a possibility that they may lose control of things. They're trying not to lose control of things, and they're going to ramp it. That's my take. I will be extremely surprised if they actually taper back. But then again, they're going to cut rates anyway. So they're going to cut rates. Rates can't go back up. Therefore, you can't earn interest on your savings if you do it the old way. So, but this is going to be the last thought that I'm going to dial back. It says most people in this country are already dependent on this government for their income. Can you say socialist? Except for Spanish-speaking people from South America building these new complexes. Nike, great point there. Good point there. I necessarily wouldn't disagree with that, I don't think. And it says, here's a question here. It says, Faith, what about Medellin, Colombia, or somewhere in South America? So I'm assuming talking about being open to new opportunities. So yeah, I got two interviews that I got to just put together, but in regards to life in Medellin and the cost of living and all that stuff like that, which to me is of interest because I think, as always, there's going to be more than enough problems, and there's always going to be people looking for solutions. So solutions come in multiple languages, multiple forms, shapes, and sizes. So I think there will be some opportunity down there. It says, Mike, go get the movie Dark City and tell me what you think. Dark City. Okay. I really don't watch movies anymore. But if it's on YouTube, I can click it. But yeah, I'm not really interested in movie or sports that much anymore. It's just too much other stuff going on. Too much things of more importance to me. So, but if you recommend Dark City, I'll try to get to it. But as I mentioned, I don't watch movies. All right. So with that being the case, I'm about to dial back. That's all she wrote. It's been great hanging out this evening. Hope you guys enjoyed hanging out with me. If you have enjoyed hanging out, don't be afraid to donate a thumbs up. Just click the little button beneath here. And as always, for those that are of interest, I still have opportunity for you to get your weight up. Got 5 ounces right there. The heavier you get, the less likely you are to get caught in a paper and digital trap. But anyway, my personal opinion is it won't take much weight in the days ahead because majority of the world don't have weight. So yeah, it's going to be all right. Anyway, I'm done talking for the night. Be blessed, be safe. I'll see you guys on the other side. I got an interview coming tomorrow. I think I should probably post 2 tomorrow, but we'll see. But other than that, as always, if anything you enjoy, share this information, get it out there, and we'll go from there. But other than that, be blessed.